Thanks for joining us for this week's live Q&A. Today we've got Parker joining us, have you done any beekeeping before?
I have not.
Never done any beekeeping, so she's joining our team. She's here to learn along with some of you guys. If you've got questions, put it in the comments and Trace will read those out and we'll answer them as we go. We're going to see if we can harvest a little bit of honey, but we will be showing you pretty soon how to use the Superlifter on a hive that has an ideal as well as a brood box as well as a honey super. So it's a question we get coming in a bit, so we want to show you that again. And if you've got any other questions, put them in the comments below and we'll see if we can answer them for you. If you've got answers to other people's questions, then it's so good to see the whole community chiming in, helping each other all around the world. So the way this works is what we're going to do is insert this key. There's two slots here. We're going to go into the bottom one. Now it's often useful because it can be quite hard to turn depending on how the bees have waxed up and propolized all the parts. So just put it in a little way and turn it. So you can do that now. So I often find it's good to hold your hand right down to the end so you've got maximum leverage. That's it. So that'll do. And turn that to a 90. Give it some good muscle. That's it. And if it's too hard to turn, you can just move it back out a little bit and do it in segments if you like. Some frames you can do all in one go and others you need to do segments. And also if you want to harvest just a small amount of honey and leave the rest for the bees, a thing you can easily do with the flow hive is just harvest a small amount, either just one frame from the whole hive or even just part of a frame. And that way you're being really gentle with your bees, and if you're unsure, you can just err on the side of the caution, take a little bit of honey for your family and leave the rest for the bees. So one neat thing is to leave that in well done, and that way if there's any parts that are still on their way to lifting, didn't seem like it, seemed pretty good, then they will, that key will just maintain pressure as all of those individual cells move to this position, which is the harvesting position for the honey to flow down and out, which you can see right there. Beautiful. Now we've got our bee veils on already, so it's a bit hard to taste, but one little trick you can do is right through the mesh. Couldn't help it. Melaleuca, so that's the paper bark that's flowering down here in our autumn and winter, and it responds to the rain. So the indigenous folks here called it the rain tree, where when it would rain, it would set off this big bloom flowering, and a week later it's all gone again. It tends to just pulse in and out, gives us a really nice little pickup through the winter time. And look at that, pouring out. A fun thing to do is you smell those flowers and then you go and taste the honey and see if you can join the dots. If you've got questions, put it in the comments and we'll get to answering those. Let us know whereabouts in the world you are and what type of honey is in your area. And there'll often be many types like we have here, really dark ones, really light colours, ones that taste like a lollipop, others that are more just a neutral kind of honey flavour. But for me, one of the most exciting things is having multiple flavours from a hive. So I always recommend single frames to single jars, or you could be doing a whole lot of little jars, but that way you're isolating the flavours, and that's just a real joy to share with your friends and family. Once you've got dark honey and light honey, aromatic honey, burnt toffee flavoured honey, people just start going, wow, how does this work? Is that from different hives? And this whole kind of learning curve opens up in conversation about honey and how it's made and all of the different flavours there are from all of the different flowers. Any questions coming in before we get to our Superlifter?
Yes, Seeds. SJ is wondering, how long will it take to fill that jar and how many litres is it?
Well, let's just have a see. What's the time now?
What is it? It's 10:15.
10:15, so let's come back to this and have a look. This frame wasn't completely full. There's not a whole lot of honey around at the moment. We're We know there's some coming though, so we're doing this for the purposes of show and tell, but normally you'd wait a little bit longer till you're really seeing the honey appear in the windows before harvesting. Now it doesn't seem like the bees are coming around, so I'm going to leave that open jar, but if I notice the bees coming around to sniff the honey around the back, we'll then cover up that jar to make sure they're not jumping in there. We're going to be working just over here, taking apart a hive, and the first thing we need to do is get our smoker going again, and you can have a play with that. If you just keep puffing it like that, then what you want to see is nice billows of cool smoke. And if you are an experienced beekeeper and not wearing your gloves, one fun thing to do is smoke your hands a little bit, said to mask that mammal smell and decrease the likelihood of bees stinging your hands. It doesn't always work, but we do it anyway. If you're new to beekeeping, gloves like this, good bee suit, make sure it's well sealed around here and around your ankles. Give yourself a nice gentle start in beekeeping. And as you get to know your bees and your temperament of your hive and how they behave, and start to tune in with the bees and know when they're getting more defensive of their hive, then you can experiment with going gloveless. So 3 good puffs right in the entrance. Stick the nozzle in the entrance, give it even further in so it's touching. That's it. Excellent. And that'll just blow a bit of smoke into the hive and give a calming effect. You can just leave the smoker there, that's great. And that way returning foragers will come home, they'll get a whiff of the smoke, and that'll help calm them and change their mood into a preparation mood, it's said, in case of fire, instead of a defend the colony from the mammals coming to steal the honey mood. Okay, next we have this hive with, we've painted this one blue. You can really see the difference in the box sizes here. You've got our standard deep brood box, you've got our ideal, and you've got the super here. Now, we'll see if there's much going on in the super. There's a little bit of honey there, so we'll dare say there's honey in the center too, so there might be a bit of weight there when we open up this hive. So we'll show you how to do the lifter and the handles as well, which are a really nice thing. So here's our lifter, and the way this works is you pick it up by those 2 handles, if you want to do that for me. So one hand on each, spread your hands apart, and then roll your wrists inward. That's the perfect lock-on point. So if you go to the back of the hive and lock the bottom ones onto the lower load point screws. We've got multiple points here because we've got the ideal as well. So those ones go on sideways. You'll notice a little slot there, and that's step 2. And we've got a QR code too you can scan for a quick how-to. And now these go up to the top, and what you'll find is you should be able to go over. Perfect. Now one little tip is make sure they stay on as you do your lift. Okay, so lifting, you're grabbing this handle, and you can stand up while you do it. We've tried to design it so you don't have to even bend down if you don't want to. You'll notice that's opened the hive already, and the bees are already coming out to get a little defensive, so we'll blow some smoke in there and give them a moment. Beautiful. Okay, now we've got a slope here, so it's just going to be a bit tight as you roll that around, but you take that all the way to the top and go down past the grass there, and make sure you go all the way. Keep going, that's it. Beautiful. Now, to make it easy, especially when you've got multiple boxes you're lifting, then these handles make it even easier. And in this case, we're going to be lifting in this direction. So we're around the front of the hive, and if you grab that handle there, I'll grab this one here, and first of all, I'm making sure this little tongue's going in its right spot there. And how this works is there's a little keyhole there, or a little notch, that goes over the screw like that, and then you simply do up this wing here. You want to try that on this side? That's it. So Parker's never done any beekeeping before. She's just joined our team and she is going to have a go at this Superlifter for the first time. Now, once you've got these, it's a really good amount of leverage. So you can stand between these two handles, making sure they're nicely done up. Yep. And you can lift. That's it. Keep going, keep going. And how's that weight for you?
Yeah, that's very easy.
Very easy. Okay, that's great, because normally lifting a 10 frame deep like this is very hard. So keep going and you can just lower it till it hits. You can just let it down now. Beautiful. So that makes lifting these what is a really challenging lift. Often you need two people, or sometimes you're taking half the frames out to make it light enough to lift the box off. Now you can not only do that, but the ideal, or another deep box at the same time with hardly any effort compared. So here we are in the brood box. Let's have a look and see what's going on in here. Pull out some frames. If you've got questions, let us know and we will read those out. Any questions coming in at all, Trace?
Yeah, Cedar, Marcus is up in North Townsville, up in Queensland, getting lots of honey coming in at the moment and has 2 flow hives. And just wondering, do you think it's okay to paint? He wants to give the outside of his hives another coat of paint, but wondering, do you think you could do it with the bees on the inside?
Always exercise caution, of course, so get out your bee suit and your gloves and everything, but I have found, yes, I don't like to pull the hive completely apart to redo some paint. I'll do it with the bees in there. They're usually pretty fine about it. However, it depends on your colony, and the entrance, of course, where the bees are is the hardest point because there's bees coming and going. So I would give that TLC in the early morning before the bees are really active. Okay, so we're going to pull out a frame, and to do that, you want to stand around here, Parker. And the first thing we do is go sideways. So this chisel end goes between the frames, and if we want to pull out this frame here, then I thought that bee was a dead bee, but I picked it up and it wasn't. It's got a little sting on the finger. Okay, so I go this way, and then this way, and what that's doing is breaking the propolis between the end bars. So wear your gloves if you're new to beekeeping, that way you won't get sting on a hand like I just did. Okay, now next your J goes under that end, so I'll do this end, you do that end, that's it. Now you're coming up. Beautiful, wow. Now if you want to grab this end with your hand now, and you can slowly come up. That's it, beautiful. First frame's the hardest. And interesting, what have we got there? We've got, see the colours down the cells? That's the bee bread, the pollen they're bringing in. And if you have a look here, you see a little bit of patchy brood. So that's an example of a very poor brood pattern. So we'll check further afield before we decide whether the queen is a good layer or not. But when you just get patchy like that, you first of all start to have a further look around to see what's going on. Beautiful, sort of a bit of brood, bit of pollen in that one. Now I'll hold that up so we can see the other side. So similar on this side here. So a little trick if you want to get to the other side is, because we're using naturally drawn comb, there's no wax and wire. I mean, this frame is well connected to the edge, we can actually tip it over, but when it's fragile, good practice technique is to keep it on its axis. So if we want to get to the other side, instead of turning it over like that, we turn it around like this. So at no point are we stressing what could be weak comb as they're just drawing it. Now, if we want to get a better look, we shake the bees off the frames. Might just leave those ones on there and have a look at the next frame. So you can go ahead, and smoke is useful to get bees away like this, so you don't squash them, and then your tool to lever it crossways first, and that way you won't pull out the nails, or in this case staples, that are holding the frame together. Well done. It's the first time Parker's ever been in a beehive. She's doing well here. It's fantastic to see. Any questions, put it in the comments and we'll get to answering them as we go. Beautiful. Nice little use of your J hook there. That's it. That little transition to holding it in your hand. Sometimes what I do is I'll lift it and just lift it up with the hook, then temporarily balance the bottom corner of the frame on top of another frame and use that moment to swap to my hand. So you can lift it. Oh yeah, you've got it. Look at that. No problem. Up you go. And that's what we wanted to see. All of this brood here. Look at that. Beautiful clockwork brood. We know she's a good layer. We're not worried anymore. And look at the pollen pants on this one. Bright yellow pollen balls. It's the pollen they've collected from the flowers. As she's approached the flower, the static charge helps the pollen grains leap off the flower right onto her hairy body. Even her eyes are hairy. And then she's scraping all of those pollen grains back to her pollen baskets, which are her hind legs there. She'll fly back to the hive. She'll then dislodge those pollen baskets. The bees will nudge them into the cells with their heads, add their enzymes and special sauce, and ferment it into a good sourdough bee bread. Now we've got a drone here too. So this is the male bee. Can you see the difference between the sizes there? That bee is sort of more rounded, teddy bear in shape, eyes that connect together in the middle. So it's quite a lot bigger than the worker bees. Now they don't have stingers, so they're good ones to play with if you do want to pick up a bee. Well done, look, fast learner. Beautiful. So that was the technique we use for naturally drawn comb, so we don't stress it, but you don't want to put it in the pancake direction. You want to keep it in the comb in a fairly vertical direction. As it gets older, it does get tougher and you can tip it over like conventional frames with their wax and wire foundation, but early on you do have to be careful. You only learn that once, and then you end up having to use rubber bands to put the comb back in and things, and then you're like, I won't do that again. Any more questions?
Yeah, Cedar, Ellen is wondering, how can you use the Superlifter on an Apimay hive, beehive?
Okay, we haven't designed it for the plastic hives, so you will need to use your own ingenuity there by connecting some kind of brackets that would allow a load point. Okay.
Right. And Scott, you're just having some issues squaring up your beehive. Just get in touch with customer support, and they're there to help you. There are a few little tips and tricks to make sure you get your boxes nice and square, so just contact the customer support team.
Okay, so we're just having a look and seeing what's going on. First time Parker's ever pulled frames out of a hive. Now, we were harvesting honey earlier and someone said, how long does it take? And that was 10:15, so how are we going? We do have a lot of honey here. We've covered up the jar for returning bees, so we've already got a lot of honey. That frame's just about done. And what's the time now?
Yeah, like 10:30, that's like 15 minutes.
So that's 15 minutes. So
yeah.
Of course, some frames will take longer depending on the temperature and the viscosity of the honey. Some might take an hour or more, or in the extreme case a couple of hours if it's really cold, slow moving honey. But it doesn't really matter because you're not having to work, you're just letting gravity drain out while you're doing something else in your life, like looking after a beehive or whatever you like. Okay, back to the Superlifter. So now that we've got one frame out like that, we can actually put that back in again. So that's it. Because we've got space now, we don't have our frame rests on today, but sometimes we like to put them on the side of the hive too. Beautiful, well done. So using the smoker now, you can use it to clear bees away where you want to work, which is at these ends. Give it some good puffs, and it does help to clear bees. Then you can pull out the next frame. Beautiful. Any questions? Chime in. We're inside the brood nest of the flow hive today. We're harvesting honey over there, which you just saw. We have the ideal here, and it's important to use these locks in order, or the latches, so in order to connect them together. Often the bees will stick them together enough for you to tip it over without these, but you don't really want it falling apart as you're tipping it over. So we recommend these nice latches that we've custom made for the purpose. Okay, or you can use any type of technique to fasten the two boxes together. Any questions coming in?
Cedar, do you ever have to clean out the hive or the flow frames?
So, in terms of the flow frames, bees do a pretty good job of looking after them. However, we've found after maybe 5 to 9 years of use, it's in that range that people go, oh, I really want to give them a good clean, I've lost my good view, or perhaps the bees aren't using the end anymore because there's a bit of mildew build up on the propolis because the colony was really quiet for a long time. And in order to clean the frames at that point, you'll need to harvest them, pull them out, use a pressure washer to blast down each cell line. And when you do that, a good tip is to lay it down on a flat surface or lean it up against a wall, and that way it's supported and won't come apart when you're blasting it. And you're blasting down the cell lines like that. Even better is if you connect your pressure washer to a hot water source, then that will do an even better job of blasting down those cell lines. Pay special attention to the window side, and you'll gain a nice view back again. Let them dry and they can go back in the hive. Please don't throw your frames away after 5 or 10 years. We want them to last as long as they can. So make sure you clean them up, give them another lease of life, and get them back on a hive again. Now, in terms of the hive itself, the bees are looking after that. However, it's sort of a form of cleaning out is, you'll notice that this frame is quite old and dark. When they're first are using it, this will be a very light brown colour or even white. And then as the bees have used it for brood cycles, the footprints of the bees plus the silk cocoons will dirty the comb. So to freshen it up, it's a common practice in springtime to move the dark ones over to the edge, wait for the brood to emerge, and remove them from the hive. Normally there's just honey on the edge, so you can take those frames away. Or if you're doing naturally drawn comb, it's even easier. You can just cut or break that comb out, put the frame straight back in the middle, and that the bees will then redraw this nice and fresh from their own wax, and away they go with nice clean freshness in the middle of the brood nest. So that's a great thing. You really don't want your frames in there for too many seasons, because it does get old and dark, and it's said to really have a pathogen load after a while. Now we're seeing a lot of nice capped brood there, so that is fantastic. This hive will explode in numbers. The spring's just around the corner for us. Starts next month as far as the bees are concerned, and away they'll go. Well done. And look at that, it's a fast learner. Well done, Parker. First time in a beehive, and looks like we can leave it to you.
Cedar, this is a good one. Pac-Man Honey's wondering, do different colonies keep the same flavour? Pac-Man's saying they have a couple of hives, and each hive always has the same flavoured honey, but they're different to each other. Is that kind of what bees do?
No, it's generally what you'll find is the bees will be foraging on one flower source that they're finding around. So normally you'll get the same flavours coming into your hives. Now you might get anomalies where one hive will go further afield and get a different flavour, but generally if the paperbark's flowering, all of these hives will be bringing it in. And if there's a few empty frames in the middle, or let's say if the supers are empty, then they'll fill the centre of the hive first and work out towards the extremities. But then that paperbark might finish and the wild quince might start flowering. So then wherever they're up to in terms of filling their frames, they'll start filling the next one out with the wild quince flavour, and then you get this beautiful checkerboarding of different flavours per in one hive. Now I'll be interested to know a little bit more, perhaps once you've harvested those frames, whether next time they fill them up, whether it's the same flavour or not. So keep us posted whether you get a new flavour now that you've harvested some of those frames.
Right.
Look at that. Parker's away here. And we've got more brood, fantastic. So the first frame we pulled was looking really patchy, which is a bit of a warning sign that your queen's failing or there's some disease issue. But now that we're on this frame, we can clearly see that there's beautiful brood all the way across it there. There's a big drone, I just knocked it off actually. But you can see some drone cells over here. So let's just have a quick look for the queen just for fun in case she's on this frame. But then we'll shake the bees off so we can just get a better look at those drone cells and get a better look at the frame. Now the bees are really thick there. So in some cases you can blow on the bees or give them a little tickle and tease apart the bees a little bit in case your queen is underneath the bees there. Okay, not seeing the queen on this frame, but we'll have another quick look on the other side. It's like a game of Where's Wally or Where's Waldo, endless entertainment, spotting queens. Okay, so to get bees off, you give a good sharp shake diagonally across the brood nest like this, and bees are going to go everywhere. Okay, you want to try that? So you're not bashing the frame down, but you want to give it a good sharp shake diagonally across. So if the queen was on there, so you're across like that. Yep, that's it. So that's getting some bees off. Beautiful. Now you've got the hang of it, and we can get a good idea of what's going on in that comb now because we can see a lot better. So that's what you need to do if you are doing a proper disease inspection. You're looking for sunken dark cappings with piercings in it, always on the lookout for that, which could be AFB or EFB. And if you get that, that's unlucky. We don't see much of it around here, but occasionally it does pop up. Now you can see shining white larvae. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the shining white larvae down the cells. It's very cool. That's the bees in the larvae stage. It's like a caterpillar that's stationary being fed by the bees. They'll do about 8 days, the worker bees, in that uncapped phase, and then the bees will put the wax capping on and away they go. And the larvae will spin a silk cocoon around itself like a caterpillar. About day 21, they'll be emerging into the hive. Now, we also have a queen cup here, which they're often making just in case they need to raise a queen. And over here, we've got drones, and you can see the difference there. Can you see that, Parker?
Yeah.
That's the male bees, and there's one there. Notice the difference in size. Quite a lot bigger, eyes touch together in the middle. And unlike the queen has a pointy abdomen. The drones are quite rounded at the back. So there's a few good tips. Often when people get started, they're thinking the drones are queens. Okay, Beautiful. There we go. So these bees are, there's quite a lot of bees in this hive, which is great. You can see they're going everywhere now. And it's just an amazing thing to be right here in amongst them all, just gently working through. You always see interesting things, and it's a kind of a never-ending learning journey.
Cedar, we've got David's tuning in from Lebanon. Oh, yeah, I think he's Lebanon, yeah. He's got a classic Flow Hive Super 7 frame, and they're about 90% full. Just wondering, should he wait till all the cells are capped before harvesting honey?
Okay, as a conventional apiarist, we used to always take it when it was about 70%, just because we were in there and it's such an ordeal to harvest in that conventional way. You may as well batch process as much as you can while you're in the hive. Now, as a flow hive, you can actually wait till that frame's capped before it's harvested, but it's up to you. You'll probably find in Lebanon that if you harvest it when it's 90% capped, then the moisture content will be low enough. So it's about the honey keeping in the jar for a long time. So if you harvest too early when a lot of it's uncapped, you get a lot more liquid honey, higher moisture content, and it may ferment on the shelf. But if I was you, I would go ahead and harvest some honey and enjoy it, and hopefully the bees will be bringing more in, and soon enough you'll have a lot more capped frames.
Right, now see, we always get the people concerned about you with your gloves or no gloves, and just wondering, how come you prefer to beekeep without your gloves, and do you get stung?
I do get stung. Actually, earlier on I was picking up a bee that I thought was dead, but it actually wasn't, and it stung me on the finger. So yes, no gloves, you will get stung more on the hands, so it's up to you. I really recommend wearing your gloves at first, just because you're learning a lot. You're learning how the bees behave, and you don't really want to have stings happening while you're in that first learning journey. So as you go on, get more experience, you start to know how your colony's behaving and so on, then you can go ahead and experiment with no gloves if you want to. Here we have a lot of drone brood, look at that. So notice how the cells are bigger. So if I smoke these bees away a little bit, you'll be able to tell the difference between the cell size of drones here and worker brood there. So there's about 5.3 millimeters for the workers, and just upwards of 6 millimeters for the drone size bees, because the drones are bigger, they need a bigger cell. And interestingly enough, when bees are storing honey only for the purposes of honey, they'll use the larger size cells too. So out towards the extremities of the hive, you get larger size cells for more efficient honey storage. And that's why we size the flow frames at a larger size than you see conventional supers will be using with their foundation. And that's simply mimicking what the bees do naturally when they're storing honey away from the brood nest. Beautiful. We've got bee bread in here too. See all the colours. Very cool. It's the first time Parker's been in a beehive. She's just joined our team. We've thrown her in the deep end. She's used the Superlifter. She's pulled out frames for the first time. She's in amongst a hive with quite a lot of bees. How is it just being amongst them?
It's definitely a new experience, but I'm having fun picking it up quickly. It's definitely made it an easy experience.
Amazing. It's you're a natural already, watching you learn quickly and manoeuvre the frames around. Beautiful.
Cedar, if Cody wants to go away on a holiday for a while at the end of summer, I'm just wondering, how long is too long to leave your beehive unattended?
Okay, so that depends a little bit about what's going on in your area. Now, the golden days for us have just wound up, where we didn't have varroa in this country and we could leave a hive for a very long time actually, and generally they'd be fine. Although it is a requirement to get in there and inspect for pests and diseases. But now we have varroa in this area, and we're in what's called the build-up phase. then we want to be in there each month monitoring, making sure Varroa isn't getting too old, applying a treatment to limit those Varroa if they are building up. So not sure where you are, but tune in with your local beekeepers and ask them what it's like. If you're here in Australia, in particularly New South Wales, then you probably want to do something to manage the mites before you go. And that's okay. No problem, that got the bees off that frame. So otherwise, you might find that the Varroa could get hold. So that's specific to this area where we've got managed colonies, unmanaged colonies in trees and things dying out, and the Varroa building up. So the requirements for us are a bit, more monthly at the moment, but as things settle down in the next year or two, then we can go back to a longer time period. So I hope that answers your question. It's not like chickens where you have to be there each day to feed them and lock them up. Bees do generally do okay by themselves, except for where intervention is needed occasionally.
Great, thanks, Steve. And can you use this hive for the stingless bees, the Trigona?
No, the Tetragonula carbonaria stingless bees of Australia, or sugarbag bee, is a completely different comb structure. It's like a spiraling grape-like pollux and in a very small hive. Now, some people have mucked around with ways to get the honey out easily, but in actual fact they hardly make any honey, so it really doesn't warrant a whole inbuilt harvesting system like we have here with our flow hive invention. So generally with the sugarbag bees, people are just pulling out chunks of comb and crushing and straining. Now you're mixing up pollen and the honey together when you do that, and you get quite a spicy, medicinal flavoured, amazing honey here from those native Australian bees. We have the oldest living culture here harvesting honey in the traditional way, where they would tie a little hair or a feather to one of the stingless bees, which are like tiny little black flies, and they'll follow it all the way back to its tree hollow, where they'll then open up that hollow and take out chunks of the honeycomb. So that's still going on here in Australia, and it's amazing to have those species now. I've got a few hives of those at home as well. So this one is really young larvae. So I mentioned earlier that this comb I thought was a bit patchy and I was worried about it, but if I had have shaken the bees off, had a closer look, I would have seen that down the cells is full of shining white larvae, which is fantastic. So give it another 5 days or so, all of this will be looking hard packed with capped brood, which will be neat. So that's good to see as well. All right, chime in with any questions. We're going to start putting this hive back together. We're going to go and get our honey and answer a few questions as we go.
Right. Cedar, how do you suggest dealing with a drone hive? It's the unboiled frog, and they're saying I've ordered a new queen and have a second thriving hive.
Do you say unboiled frog?
Yeah, that's his name.
The name just caught me off guard. Your question again.
Oh, sorry. Has a drone hive. Just wondering how to deal with it. A drone hive. He has an extra queen.
Could you get Trace a bay also? Just keep walking. The bees are getting a little bit sick of us.
They're getting a little bit cranky. Sorry, I'll just walk away. Drone hive seeds. How do you deal with it if you've got a queen and a second hive?
A queen. So the question is there only drones?
Yeah, how do you suggest? He says a drone hive. I've ordered a new queen and have a second thriving hive.
Okay, so I take it your question is you've got a hive and you're only finding drone brood in it. Now, we had a look at those drones earlier. If you're only finding drone brood, there's two reasons why that could be happening. One is you don't have a queen at all, which sounds like you've already identified. Now the worker bees can start laying, but they can only lay unfertilized eggs, which turn into the males. So then you have a hive full of drones Now the drones don't do any sort of work around the hive in terms of pollen collecting or nectar collecting or chores in the hive, so eventually your hive just goes to rack and ruin, dies out. So to rectify that, you'll need to give the hive a queen, which will come in a little queen cage if you can order one. I think I've got one in my pocket here somewhere. And where'd it go? No, lost it. There it is. So it'll come in a little queen cage like this. We're going to give this hive a little more smoke. They're getting grumpy now. Too long, they're saying, too long in the show and tell. So if you find your hive is getting a bit grumpy and starting to give you stings or warnings, then a bit more smoke. Look at them, this is a really packed hive. So it's exciting to see. It'll be a good spring. Back to your question. So you order a queen in the mail like that, which you then can put into the hive. The bees will chew away the candy block and that queen will be released, and hopefully she'll be a keeper. If you've got another hive, then you don't actually need to order one of these. You could just get a frame out with really young brood down the cells, or even better, look for the bee eggs. Now if they're in the first 3 days there, so basically bee eggs down the cells, the bees will be able to feed that young larvae royal jelly for its entire 8 days, which will turn it into a queen. So through epigenetics, they can turn what would be a worker bee into a queen just by continuing to feed it royal jelly. If they feed it plant proteins, then it'll turn into a worker bee. So you can therefore grab a frame from your other hive with bee eggs on it, put it in, and they will likely raise a queen themselves. Now look at this hive, they are absolutely going off. Great to see, a good healthy colony. Perhaps a bit of a daunting one to do your first frame, first bit of beekeeping on, but Parker's doing very well here. She's maintaining a nice calm presence, which is exactly what you need to do when you're doing your beekeeping. But what we might do is put the last frame back in and start closing up this hive. So here we go, smoking the bees out of the way, and then we're going to make space just by pushing the frames across like this, and we're going to put this frame in. So you can slowly slide that down. So we just did our brood inspection. I didn't pull any of the frames out. Parker's done an amazing job, first time in a beehive, and this is a very busy beehive as well. And you'll notice there's a bit of resistance there. Just give it a bit of a push and the frames will start moving across. If they don't, you can make more space with your hive tool. You're doing a great job there. A lot of bees in the way, so we'll smoke them out as that final end bar comes out. That's it. Beautiful. Nice job. If you give that a push, it'll go in. Well done. I didn't help at all with pulling the frames out. You did a great job. Well done. Now, we've got bees everywhere on this hive, which is a good sign that they're building up, ready for this spring flow. They're already getting nectar, which is stimulating the queen to start laying those eggs, even though we're in the middle of winter here. So when you do have to get bees out of the way, don't be shy, use your smoker. You can also use a bee brush to move bees along, or a combination of the two. So in this case, with our Superlifter, I'm going to get them out of this area here, just by brushing them off, because that's where there's a bit of movement with the parts. Don't want to squash any bees. And also the first spot where the hive is going to land is this area here with this area here. So we're going to brush them away and seize a moment. Now we don't have to clear the whole lot yet, because it's only this area along this edge where it's going to land. So Parker, if you could grab these handles and lower it down. Yeah, you can use just one handle, that'll work too. Now, normally lifting heavy boxes is a real pain. Our Superlifter makes it a lot easier. That's it. And so I'm just going to move the bees out of the way like that. You can put that down there now. Beautiful. So that's perfect. Now what you'll see is a lot of bees right where we want to close the hive. And look at them, they're all over the stand, everywhere. This is amazing. They are really firing up now. Good, strong colony. Fantastic. May as well brush them off this area where our hands are going to go, especially me not wearing the gloves. That's it. Now, how are we going to get them out of the way to close the hive up? Look how many there is. So what we're going to do is use our smoker and our bee brush to use a lot of smoke just to smoke the bees in. And you'll notice they will clear out of the way. And you can use your brush as well. And if we were being patient, we could let them all go in, but we'll probably get impatient and just want to close this hive up. But look at them all marching in, isn't that cool? We're using a bit of smoke and they're all just running up, running for home. Any more questions?
Cedar, just wondering, what are you using in the smoker and does it have a smell?
Yes, it's just this sugarcane mulch here. Now wear your gloves if you're packing your smoker, unless you've got a lot of experience. You don't want to burn yourself against the hot surrounds. So I'm just using this because it's what we've got around, not because it's the best fuel. Just use leaves or bark from a tree or whatever you can, or if you've got none of that, some cardboard that's plain without coloured prints and things on it is a suitable smoker source. Okay. Now, look at them all, isn't that amazing? Check out the front of the hive here. It's got a lot of foragers coming into land as well. Gives the thumbs up if you can see those big pollen balls on the front. It's very cool.
Cedar, Rex is in Victoria and just having issues with the brood box, so wants to move his colony. Just wondering, what do you think about doing that in the winter time, so swapping out the brood box?
Swapping out the brood box in the winter time?
In Victoria, yeah.
In Victoria. So I think some local knowledge is key, but Victoria is a lot colder than here, obviously, but it's not as cold as the snow places that have deep snow through winter and so on. Generally in those really cold places you refrain from opening the hive, but if you can pick a nice warmer day, then you can go ahead and do your beekeeping even in winter in Victoria and do a swap out, as you say.
Right. Now Christus needs a Superlifter by the sounds of it. They dropped their super on the hive the first time they tried to check the brood box, but since then their bees have become really aggressive. They're sort of thinking, yeah, they probably do need a Superlifter, but they're also wondering, do you think the bees will always stay aggressive now?
Look, it depends. One sign of aggression is that you've actually lost your queen, so you need to get in there and have a look and see whether they have indeed got young brood or young larvae there, showing there's a presence of a queen. You don't actually have to find the queen, you can just see that she's there, or queen right is the term we give to a hive that has a laying queen and there's young brood down the cells. So if you've ascertained that, then yes, it is a genetics thing. But if they've lost their queen, then they might calm down when they've raised a new one. And hopefully they do so. So if you find, it's not good to judge a bee on a single inspection, judge a hive on a single inspection, because you might find that it was just a bit of an off day, that it was a bit windy, it was a bit rainy, or things that affect the temperament of your bees. So, but if you multiple times you go in and they're aggressive and that's bothering you, then yes, taking away the queen, introducing a new one of known genetics will fix that problem. A month later, the whole lot of worker bees and guard bees would have changed over and you'll have a nice gentle temperament again. if that feels daunting, then you might like the help from a more experienced beekeeper to help you find that queen in your hive. Okay, so bees are slowly going in, but not very slowly on this side of the hive. Look at them all over the windows, everywhere. But if we're in a hurry, we'd just simply brush as many as we can away and then drop it down. So let's have a look on the other side. The Superlifter does give you that control to drop gently. Obviously, if you're putting this back, you generally couldn't really get the bees out of the way if you're putting it back without the lifter, but we do have that opportunity just to gently lower it down now. But if you do that for us, Parker, I can just brush some bees out of the way. A little bit of smoke will help. And we're just slowly going down. Well done. Look at you go, first time with the Superlifter, no problem. So that's it. Beautiful. That's it, well done. And there we go, in a lot more controlled way than conventional, where you're suddenly dropping a really heavy box on top of a whole lot of bees. Can't be helped in the conventional fashion, but we've designed our Superlifter to give you that extra little bit of control. So what I'm noticing there is, first of all, these come off. So that one stays on down the bottom and you push it in and then back. That's it. Well done. Excellent. Round of applause for Parker, the first time in a hive using the Superlifter, and what a great job. Hardly any tuition there, and she was able to open the hive in a much easier way than conventional, especially when the boxes get full of honey. They can weigh too much to lift. Okay,
Great.
Any more questions?
Cedar Rose is wondering, is this an aged queen in this hive?
I didn't get a look at her, but you can tell her age by looking at her often. But she looks to me like she's laying really well. She's probably in her stride in her first couple of years of her life. Okay.
And of course, everyone always wants to know where we are streaming from.
We're here on the east coast of Australia, near a little town called Byron Bay, and it's a place where we do get a lot of rain, so you might notice it's very green, and we've had a lot of rain recently. Over here we've got our honey harvest that came out of the hive by itself while we were over there looking after the bees in that other hive. So all we need to do to wind up this harvest is turn that back to a 90, then we're into the top slot like that, all the way till you feel a knock at the back, and back to a 90, and you'll find that all of the parts will then be pushing back into the cell form position. The bees will start tearing off the capping, recycling the wax, rebuilding the cells, depositing nectar, and the whole process starts again. Now, good tip is to leave that at a 90 for a minute or two while you pack up some things, and that way you just make sure all those parts are pushing back all the way into that hexagon shape. If you leave them out of line from a quick close, you might find some problems later where you've got a lot of wax build up, disturbing the flow of honey. Now let's have a look under here. Okay, it looks like Sophie put the cover on for us, thank you, because one bee got in the jar. Now we're just going to do a little quick swap back to our end cap here, and there we have it. Your first jar of honey you harvested, and what we're going to do is fish that bee out. Now, bees can be in honey and it doesn't matter too much because they will swim around, have a little honey bath, and we can put that bee right back on the landing board. So that's it there, and the other bees will clean it up very quickly indeed. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know if you've got any questions. We're always happy to answer. Trace, who's reading out the questions, will answer the phone if you ring up as well. We do our best to answer all your questions, and thanks to all of you that are chiming in and helping all of the questions that are in the thread below. It's amazing to see a global community helping each other out in a real wide range of climates, people keeping bees on balconies in cities, on rooftops, in backyards and all of that. It's great to have expertise from all around the world to help the new beekeepers, remembering that we all started off as new beekeepers once. And that was the first beekeeping session for Parker here. She did really well. She was in amongst a very busy hive, pulling out the frames without any of my help. And she also opened the hive with our new Superlifter invention, which if you want to know more about, chime in or have a look on our page. We've got lots of information for you about our latest invention, the Superlifter. If you do want an online course made to take you from knowing nothing right through to even quite a deep knowledge in bees, have a look at the beekeeper.org. Gets rave reviews, and it's also an amazing fundraiser. So it's free to try, but if you do want to continue with that course, then we're raising funds for the bees, for habitat, for what we really need to be doing, and that's rewilding our world so that not only these honeybees but all the species who need habitat can be housed again. So have a look at thebeekeeper.org, and it's a great online course with a lot of video tuition from myself and my father and experts from all around the world. Let us know what you'd like us to cover next week, and we'll be back same time for another show and tell. Thanks for tuning in.